Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shazan Mohammed, and I'm the chairman of the Naparima Constituency Executive. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce a friend and an asset to the Naparima constituency. He has been our MP for the past 2 terms, no other than MP Rodney Charles. Throughout his career, he has served Trinidad and Tobago and the constituents of Naparima to the best of his ability. He is a veteran of the energy sector, spending 20 years at senior and management levels at National Petroleum. At MP, he pioneered the long-deferred service station upgrade, including the development of a string of convenience stores known as quick shops. At National Petroleum, MP Charles was instrumental under the chairmanship of Mrs. Carolyn Sipasad Bechan of replacing large numbers of leaking steel tanks, which were endangering our underground water supplies by commencing the replacement with double-wall fiberglass tanks equipped with leak detection systems. He was also an adjunct lecturer at the University of New Brunswick and Reutech, and a head of department and academic dean at Costart, where he started the School of Journalism and Public Relations, now known as the Ken Gordon School of Journalism and Communication Studies. As TT's UN ambassador, he recorded 3 major achievements. Firstly, the US $12.9 billion acquisition of an ultra-modern chancery, which today is arguably worth upwards of US $30 million. It earned for the taxpayer a rental income of US $30,000 monthly. Secondly, he obtained CARICOM and Latin American endorsements for TT's 2023 presidency at the UNGA. And thirdly, a guaranteed non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council in 2027. In Parliament, as an opposition member, he endeavored to hold Dr. Rowley's administration to account on a range of matters. Since 2015, he has served as Shadow Minister for Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and National Security. This morning, my dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome MP Rodney Charles to the podium.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the Naparima constituency, Mr. Shazam Mohammed. I welcome the representatives of the media. I represent, and also representatives of the constituency executive. Thank you very much for your support today. And I see in our presence the former chairman of the Talparo Kuva Tabakit Regional Corporation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I also will be speaking to Trinidad and Tobago and members of my great party, the United National Congress. As I embark on a journey towards strengthening our party and reaffirming our commitment to democratic principles, it is my responsibility to ensure that our great party continues to be the preeminent beacon of democracy and struggles in the interest of our membership and our country at large. Contemplating 3 terms as an opposition MP in Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is not a job I would ever wish on my worst enemy, especially with an incompetent Dr. Keith Rowley as leader of the PNM. So therefore today, our highest priority is to get rid of the People's National Movement. To do this effectively, it cannot be business as usual. We cannot bus in the same 300 attendees to meetings and tell ourselves that these large crowds portend a UNC victory in 2025. We cannot be a formidable political force if we have not a single functioning party group. We must not delude ourselves into believing that we will win in 2025 with dysfunctional party organs. And we cannot select the best and the brightest to represent us when we know that the screening process as it operates is not designed to deliver excellent, world-class, transformational visionaries. Many suspect that a certain neighboring MP has a virtual veto on who becomes an MP or councillor or alderman. That can never, never be right. As the oldest MP in the lower house, I call on my septuagenarian colleagues to join me in ushering a new era of politics in Trinidad and Tobago. I call on Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. I call on my esteemed political leader, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, to join me in stepping down and ushering in a transformative moment in our largely pedestrian, underperforming, outmoded, and antediluvian politics of survival. We must discard once and for all the notion that one has to leave Trinidad and Tobago politics either in ignominy or in a casket. That has all the footprints of septuagenarian logic and behavior. 3 of our prime ministers went to the great beyond before the age of 70. Patrick Manning at 69, the great Eric Williams at 69, George Chambers at 69. The 2 others were A.N.R. Robinson and Basidio Pandey. They lived beyond their allotted 70, but did so out of prime ministerial office. My colleagues who are entering the closing chapter of politics must remember that all great religions speak about the different stages of life. In Hinduism, there are 4 stages of life in life. I am in the 4th stage, sannyasa, where the ultimate goal is to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. Before that, there's the stage of detachment from earthly entanglements. In Christianity, Scripture tells us in Ecclesiastical 3, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. In Islam, the Quran talks about the 7 stages of the creation of mankind, where the last stage is where the obedient soul is ready to enter paradise. So it is now the time for all aging leaders and older generation of politicians to retire graciously and enter a new season of life. We cannot forever defy logic, common sense, physiology, the laws of nature, and the wisdom of our scriptures. I repeat my call for Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa and Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley to follow me in surrendering graciously our earthly political power and taking up the cross of nurturing, encouraging, and mentoring a new generation of Trinidad and Tobago leaders. I can think of no greater task than this. No greater service to Trinidad and Tobago and to generations yet unborn. It is long past the time for a seamless generational transfer of leadership in Trinidad and Tobago. The recipients of the political baton must bring fresh ideas, be of impeccable character. Let me repeat that. Be of impeccable character. And even though relatively young, must have impressive world-class academic qualifications in a wide range of professions, buttressed by proven track records in the public, private sector, academia, or NGOs. These young people exist. All we have to do is possess the servant leadership style to unearth them, find them, bring them into the party, nurture them. And then as you move on, we, Trinidad, will have a group of young, dynamic leaders. We cannot bequeath to future Trinidad and Tobago citizens the same old, tired legacy of underperformers who do a grave injustice to our potential, so that in the not too distant future, we will become CARICOM's basket case. The signs are already there. This tired generation is pinning our future to dragon gas pipe dreams, reliant on the vagaries of US politics and Maduro's goodwill, even as the world hurls towards a non-fossil energy future. Both globally and regionally, our modern-day leaders are trending towards being under 50 years of age. Here are a cross-section of young world leaders. Listen to young world leaders. The Prime Minister of Grenada, Dix Mitchell, he is 44 years old. The President of Guyana, Dr. Mohamed Irvan Ali, and we heard about him, 42 years old. Leo Varadkar became Ireland's Prime Minister at age 38. At 34, Gabriel Attai became France's Prime Minister. Mohammed bin Salman of oil-rich Saudi Arabia, 38 years old. Gabriel Boric, 37, he's President of Chile. Even in Tobago, the political leader of the PNM Tobago Council is Ansel K. Dennis, 37 years. And the Chief Secretary of the THA, Fali Augustine, I couldn't get his age, but I'm sure he's under 40 years. An ABC News Ipsos poll conducted earlier this year found that 86% of Americans felt that President Joe Biden, at 81 years, was too old to serve another term. 76% also felt similarly about Donald Trump at 77. If our Prime Minister, if Dr. Rowley is still the leader of the party and he wins the election in 2025, he will serve until he is in his 80s. Is this what we want? If we do not proactively prepare our younger generation now for the changing issues, challenges, and crises to come, then they will be unprepared for the future. And Trinidad and Tobago is headed inexorably towards a future led by underprepared leadership. Let's face it. My generation of leaders have failed Trinidad and Tobago and generations yet unborn. My generation is leaving Trinidad and Tobago with a poisoned chalice. They will inherit insurmountable debt burdens, a totally collapsed education system, possible ethnic struggles from not integrating our Latin American guests, an outdated health infrastructure where our babies die without even enjoying the breath of life, an energy sector in terminal decline, stage 4 decline, a shrinking middle class, and a heritage and stabilization fund surviving on borrowings. This is our record of my septuagenarian colleagues, bequeathing many intractable problems, some of which are now beyond repair. This is the classic case of intergenerational inequity, where one generation, my generation and those before me, my generation misuses our God-given natural resources, leaving future generations to pay the price. Our focus now as aging leaders should be to nurture a new breed of servant leaders, not those proficient in the science of holding on to power. The United National Congress has always been a party that has encouraged resiliency, democracy, transparency, politics of the future, and putting people first. We cannot build and strengthen our party in secret behind closed doors. We must have the strength and the fortitude to conduct our affairs that affect our membership with their participation. By doing this, we will not only build public trust and confidence in the structure of the UNC, but also showcase to voters that we live by the same principles by which we expect to govern. So calling for internal elections when it is constitutionally due is necessary, it is important, it is vital for shaping the UNC to be the best version of itself. In order for the UNC to remain a resilient force against the PNM, we must reinvent ourselves and pivot our attention to new policies, national development, the generational transfer of leadership, and first and foremost, diligently pursue the interests of Trinidad and Tobago. As a member of the UNC for almost 30 years, I firmly believe that our party serves as a beacon of democracy and a bulwark against dictatorship and autocracy. We must learn from past mistakes and emerge stronger and more united than ever before. Our ultimate goal is not just to win elections, not to win internal elections, but to serve the people of our nation with integrity, compassion, and dedication. Today, I firmly believe that we stand on the doorstep of a new era for the United National Congress. Therefore, what I'm doing here today has nothing to do with Rodney Charles. Rather, I am doing this for future generations of the UNC. The UNC has served me well. And it is incumbent on me to leave the UNC, or when I depart from this earth, I leave the UNC better than I met it. So that I am doing this for the future generations of the UNC and the future of Trinidad and Tobago. A reinvigorated UNC will abide by the dictates of our party's constitution. We shouldn't be talking this. This should be mandatory. We must be a beacon of democracy where mechanisms exist where the voices of the downtrodden in our party, and Lord knows there are many, where their voices are heard, and not only heard, but respected. The man in Barrackpore, the man in Naparima, the man in Siparia, his voice must be heard, and there must be a mechanism for the party to respectfully address the concerns of the downtrodden in our party. Our organs and institutions must be the training grounds for future leaders of vision, of character, and capacity to deliver. It must be an organization operating so transparently that the membership is in no doubt about how our monies are spent and how our candidates are selected. It must never be a party where the screening of candidates is used to induce fear, genuflection, cowardice, and conformity. Let me repeat that. The screening process must never be it must never be a party where the screening of candidates is used to induce fear, genuflection, cowardice, and conformity. And may I say, off script, that this also exists in the PNM. This also exists in the PNM. I'm told that Mr. Patrick Manning, years ago, before he became Prime Minister, was invited to screening in Balize House at 3 o'clock, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, he had not yet been screened. All in a process to humiliate Mr. Patrick Manning. So we are talking about a transformation across parties. Our internal elections must be the gold standard, reflecting the highest levels of transparency, fairness, integrity, and world-class systems and processes. Our internal elections must never favor one side with doctored lists, voter suppression techniques, and questionable practices. We are bigger than that. Our internal elections must be conducted in a manner from which even the EBC could learn. Our elections must be closer to the democratic ideal and be less like those conducted by President Putin and our neighbor President Maduro. Doing so would put the UNC in a better position to lecture the EBC on matters of integrity, fairness, and transparency. Above all, the UNC must believe in and espouse the virtues of the great religions of planet Earth, with which God has blessed Trinidad and Tobago. I refer to Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and the Orishas. As I end, I say, long live the United National Congress. Long live the principles given to us by our founding fathers. Long live this great party that will be a beacon of light for many generations to come. To my 4 colleagues who have put country before self, who have stood up for principles before survival, who have defied the wisdom of keeping quiet in the interest of protecting one's safe seat, who many will revile and call all manner of names. I say, be of good cheer. Remember always that God is in control, and in the end, history will absolve you. And to those unwise souls who say we deserve to be backbenched, I say, it matters not where we sit in Parliament. What is of consequence is where we stand on the enduring principles of truth, honor, and dignity. I thank you. And now, I will invite questions from the media if there are any.
Mr. Charles, you talked about, changing the class of leadership. During your time in the Parliament, or even outside the Parliament, have you seen suitable candidates for leadership, and so who are they?
What I can say is that they exist. These young, talented leaders exist. I mean, even the UNC, it is the children, our children. If you look at any list, scholarship winners and whatnot, we are there, but they are not in the party at leadership levels. So I say the challenge is to unearth them, find them, nurture them, and encourage them. I have talked to a lot of young doctors and engineers and professionals, and they say they don't want to become involved in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. It's too nasty. It's designed for incompetent people to rise to the top. I make no comments on myself, nor any of my colleagues, but I'm saying I was told by a young, bright professional in the energy sector, he's probably getting $70,000, $80,000 a month. And he said, what incentive is there for me to come and sit in Parliament? Right? So we have to, it is a whole transformation that will start with the internal elections. If it is fair, if it is open, the best will come forward and the best will be elected. And all of us will gain from that. If I, Rodney Charles, I'm not the best for Naparima, so be it. But the person who replaces me mustn't be a lackey, mustn't be a subservient individual. It must be a person of integrity and character and class and world class, so that I could say he could do a better job than me.
So you have no reservations about the previous UNC internal elections?
I am saying that there is, I've heard comments by the Dr. Fuad Khan, those who have participated in the election, Vasan Bharat, and they have said they do not have belief in the integrity of the system. I do not know, but all I could do is call for the gold standard. These are the things we want. You cannot have a list hidden in the background in your back pocket. You cannot have the date in your back pocket. You cannot have a system where you are in charge of who are the presiding officers. It must be transparent, and I think we know the principles.
So this year is the election that is supposed to take place this year. It's not for the leadership?
No, it's not for leadership. It is for NATEX, the National Executive.
Right. And any changes in NATEX really affect the overall output from the UNC going into the 2025 general elections?
NATEX is the critical body that will advise the leader and invite the leadership of the party about the direction in which it should go. Right? So in terms of the election, NATEX could ensure that we have less of a Putin-type election, where you know the results before you start, and more like an election in any first world democracy. NATEX has a great say, and in steering the leadership of our party in the right direction. So if you do not have strong, independent professionals, if you do not have that quality of person, world-class persons. Let me give you the example of Singapore. In the Singaporean party, their equivalent of the NATEX, throws up a body of leaders who they present to the membership of the party, so that when you look at the last prime minister, the present prime minister is given up, he's 72, he's given up in May this year. When you look at the fellow who is him and the person who is following him, they are world class at any level. They're on the boards of Harvard and Cambridge University School of Economics, that level of person. They went to the Kennedy Business School of Governance, the Kennedy College of Governance in Harvard University. That is the level.
But let me ask you this. I mean, both the PNM and UNC, probably the other smaller parties have a democratic setup. But let me ask you, and forget about the Chelsea politician, but let me say you're back intellectually and you're telling your students this, right? Despite the democratic setup, isn't it that the leaders of the political parties have the final say, the veto, regardless of what the executive says? Isn't it that the leaders have the power?
And nothing is wrong with that. But there must be responsible checks and balances in the party. So if we present, there was a time, I'll give you an example. Eric Williams, he did not want certain candidates. He called them millstones. I think Carlton Gomes and others were in that. And he said he didn't want them. And the constituency executive said we wanted them. And you know who prevailed? Not Eric Williams, the constituency executives. So they went up for elections on Eric Williams' ticket and he called them millstones. That speaks to the strength of the arm's length relationship with this. So the leader must have the final say. But it cannot be a situation where the leader controls the NATEX and controls everything and sits there and dictates that you get and you do not get and do not have to account even to the executive. Eric Williams had to account to the executive general council, and they told him we wanted those candidates. I am not sure that happens today.
I get this spirit. So ideally, we would like to see new leaders leading the major political parties headed into 2025.
I am saying, hear what I'm saying, and I've said it, and I think I was clear. I'm calling for a generational transfer of the leadership at both parties. How that evolves, who is thrown up, left to the membership of both parties. I cannot dictate at this stage. Rodney Charles cannot dictate. The members are the sacred. And a free and fair NATEX election will be one step in that direction.
So after saying this, what is next for Rodney Charles?
Rodney Charles has grandchildren, 2 in Japan, learning Japanese, who I don't know. I see them on WhatsApp every day, so I'll be going there. I have made myself available to the party, to act as help, assistance in whatever way. But I'm not going to be there for window dressing and mama guy talk and, for optics. It must be a responsible engagement. I have too little time to waste on stupidity. That is why when my colleagues call me Mahani Makaram or whatever, it doesn't bother me. As the scripture says, what is man? That I must be mindful of them. At this stage, I have a lot of sins I have to make up for. I have to talk to Bhagwan, talk to the Maker, and reconcile. And I'm not saying so as any righteous person. I'm saying so full of sins, but in need of redemption. That is more important in this stage than the media saying Rodney Charles great, or this leader saying I ain't great, or that leader say I'm a dissident. Those are irrelevant.
But to be more clear, would you like to return as an MP?
No. I have sat. Mr. Pandey has said we need constitutional reform. What? Contemplating three terms in opposition. What do I do? Go and sit and talk and be buffed up by somebody much younger than me, telling me, Mr. Charles, take a walk. And Mr. Rowley telling me to leave Trinidad and Tobago. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here, which is a Eric William PNA mantra. A citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, navel string buried in St. Madeleine. And the Prime Minister telling me if I don't like Trinidad, I could get the hell out of here. I can't take that. That is wasting time. And time is precious.
And so you yourself, your colleague Rabbi and Mr. Parry have all spoke out of these issues. I mean, what do you think will happen to you all now?
Que sera, sera. Whatever the gods designed. My job, and I must admire my colleagues for standing up. All of us in our different ways. Miss Anita Haynes, I consider a daughter. She is as intellectual. She is part of the new generation of leaders that I envisage.
Yes, sir.
Rambali, we're different. He speaks his mind. He is what I would have liked to be. My father was Rodney Theophilus Charles. No nonsense school supervisor. And he on his funeral, we said he didn't know the art of calling a spade a broom. He said it as he saw it, and let the whatever fall wherever. Rambali falls into that category. So he's different, and he's making and very erudite, very intellectual. He's in terms of law, he's top of the line. In fact, he was a judge of the industrial court. Why is he not part of the leadership? I don't know. Mr. Parry, when I look, I see humility, intellect, business acumen, oratory skills, and decency. And I'm saying, what is wrong with that? And we could go on and on, Dr. Ragbeer and what. These are all people in which I can repose confidence in. When I die, I'm in the grave, and Mr. Parry is whatever, Prime Minister or whatever. I could feel comfortable. At least we wouldn't have corruption. At least we wouldn't have theft. We wouldn't have games. We wouldn't have peace. 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 Yes. Peace. Yes.
How old are you?
75 on the 15th of March 19. I was born 15th of March 1949, so I'm 75.
So that would have made you 71 when you last contested.
Yes.
Given what you're saying about aging leadership, you
Yes.
would have sought a leadership position through an MP role at
Yes.
71.
Yes.
Your views were different at the last election?
Yes, they were different. And at that time, I saw when I went to screen in the last occasion, I said, this is the last time you're seeing me. I am taking this opportunity to identify a new cadre of leadership, because I saw myself as gracefully leaving the politics. And I've said so in Parliament on various occasions. It's not new. So at 70, 71, what it is, God has allotted unto us 70. So it was 70. And after that, you move on. So and now, 5 years later, I'm wiser. I'm 5 years wiser than I was then. And I've looked at Trinidad and where we headed. And let's don't fool ourselves. We could play games, and dance and pretend like things are going well. But any honest person, and over the 5 years, it has become increasingly obvious to me that Trinidad and Tobago is headed downhill. And therefore, now more than ever, it is important to effect a transformation in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago.
Earlier you would have identified, calling for people under the age of 40 or even 50. I mean, you would have been 20 years old in the last election.
Yes.
Is that a call you think people will heed? And if you were to take away 50 and above right now, how much of the current leadership on either side do you think you'd be taking away right now? Is that a realistic call?
You see, when you come to 75, you're not into options and scenarios. You're into ideals, what I would like to see. And I am sufficiently humble enough to know that what I would like may not be practical, it may not be reasonable and whatnot, but my job at this stage is, as a senior, I'm the eldest in Parliament in the lower house. My job is to warn, to advise, and it is for the rest of Trinidad and Tobago to ignore, discard, stigmatize, whatever, that's their right. But I would be able to say, when I meet Bagwan, I might be able to say, I played my part. My conscience is clear.
Earlier also, when my colleague asked you a question, you would have said, you know, in recontesting, one of the reasons is that, you know, you can't, what would you do? Sit down and hear a younger person tell you to leave?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. You said, you know,
All
you
right.
can't sit and hear a younger person tell you that.
All right.
Do you think maybe that's the mindset of a lot of the older people of leadership positions right now in the politics?
Well,
that they can't hear a younger person?
Assuming you are right, but not accepted, it is one reason why we should not be there. You understand? If it is right, and you said that, I said that, and you said that that is a manifestation of old age, then you have made the case for me saying that it's time to go to the examine alternatives.
And just finally from me, in endorsing Mr. Parry just now, you know, you said we'd probably see less corruption or no corruption, so we could correct me there if I'm wrong, but you would have referenced corruption. Do you feel then that corruption would currently only exist with the current leadership, and any person or people thereafter,
No,
there'll be a removal of what we currently see,
I think-
problems that exist?
I think Trinidad and Tobago has a crisis of corruption. I read about Singapore, and I was shocked that Singapore had more corruption than Trinidad prior to 1962. But you know, Lee Kuan Yew came, and I think he wanted to set an example, and he said, if my son was involved in corruption, he has to pay the penalty. And I think one of his ministers took a free flight, a ticket to somewhere. Not really corruption by Trinidad standards, but he was fired. And another one committed suicide. And two others were terminally, they had resigned. And he said he did that in order to say once and for all, Singapore will be based on a meritocracy. Consider what occurred in Trinidad with Eric Williams. And I was part of that process years ago. Johnny O'Halloran, you had this Tesoro scandal, the Lockjohn scandal, Jean Mai scandal. O'Halloran, and subject to correction, O'Halloran was involved in malfeasance, and he was promoted in the PNM. Patrick Sullivan went in the police station and took out his son. And I'm talking here from memory. And Eric Williams, I think Sparrow had the calypso. I say that Solomon will be Minister of External Affairs. And you will like it? Get the hell out of here. Which said that you could break the law so long as you're close to the leader. And that is a problem in Trinidad.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you'd like to say to UNC supporters who have been saying that these voices of opposition to the current leadership, the time of it, 1 year from election, anything you'd like to say to those people?
I would like to say to the membership of the United National Congress is that the opportunity exists for you to have a say in the party. And nothing could be wrong with that. If you feel, and I feel so too, that if the party membership decides to elect the current leadership, I will support it. I must support it because I believe in democracy. Right? The voice of the people, although the voice of the people is not always the voice of God. I know when Pontius Pilate said, crucify Jesus or Barabbas. They say crucify Jesus. But to the extent that the voice of the people is the voice of God, once the people have spoken, I have made my case, that's it. I will support Kamala Prasad Bisesa if she is re-elected in the internal elections, if it is free and fair. If there are no other questions, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, my executive, colleagues from elsewhere, the party supporters, I thank you for coming. I hope that the exchange of ideas today will redound to a better Trinidad and Tobago. We all want, all of us want a place where our children and grandchildren could live in peace, prosperity, and could live in a place where they can be justly proud to be Trinidad and Tobago citizens. One last thing. A lot of my cousins went to America and Canada, you know, and we who remained in Trinidad always had a sense that we should have migrated like them, because they used to come back and show off, you know, how they're great in the United States and whatnot. I would like to prove them wrong, so that when I meet my cousins from the United States, they should be applying to come to Trinidad and lining up to get their visas and their passports and whatnot. This is the Trinidad that God in his infinite wisdom give us oil and gas and cocoa and sugar cane. And he gave us natural gas and oil. And he put the 4 great religions of planet Earth in this small place. 2,000 square feet, we can't avoid each other. So while in Iran they're fighting with the Shia and the Sunnis and all of that, Trinidad, there are families where the father is Hindu, married to a Muslim. In fact, Pare is a Hindu, married to a Muslim. And the children is, not his, but children are Pentecostal. And children are like my friend from Rastafari Selassie. All of us living together and drawing on the strengths of each other philosophy, so that we could make a great Trinidad and Tobago. My generation has not created this. We have failed Trinidad and Tobago. I apologize for my generation, and I say the time has come for a new generation of leadership. I thank you very much.